Hey, what you reading for?
A young Algerian man immigrates to Paris, where he has his tenuous grip on reality further jeopardized when he develops an erotic, obsessive relationship with a residential building set for demolition. This is Edifice Complex. If you like books and you like content about books, do give this video a like and do hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. Today, I received my author's copy of Edifice Complex and I want to tell you all about it. So let's have a look, yeah? Ta-da! Yeah, it's all there. I think it's 342 pages. So in this video, I want to tell you about this book, tell you how it came about, the troubled and now timely story of its publication, and I'll read for you a short excerpt. But first, let's start at the beginning. Yeah, I was living in Paris, carving out a career in the competitive and not at all lucrative field of contemporary opera. I was coming off a modest success, emphasis on modest, with a 3-scene chamber opera, which is a short piece consisting of 6 singers and 4 cellos. And based on that modest success, as modest as it was, I let it immediately go to my head. I said to myself, no more short chamber operas. I'm ready for the big time, opera de Bastille, here I come, right? So I set out to create an opera that would be talked about and celebrated the world over. It's going to be amazing. Not only was I going to compose this highly acclaimed opera, but I was going to write the libretto myself. The opera was called Buck v. Bell, based on the 1927 U.S. Supreme Court decision of the same name. The story is insane, and sadly, it's a true story. So at that time, in the state of Virginia, and all throughout the U.S. actually, eugenics was all the rage. The idea that we could improve the human race through selective breeding, and notably negative eugenics, the idea that we could improve the human race by preventing those we deemed undesirable, prevent them from procreating. So this doctor was the head of the Virginia Institute for the Epileptic and Feeble-Minded. He was really into eugenics, negative eugenics. And what he would do is he would sterilize his patients that he deemed undesirable. And these sterilization operations that he conducted, they were not consensual. But he believed that he had the right to conduct these non-consensual operations. Some of his patients disagreed, and one of them took him to court. Now, the doctor did not end up getting into trouble for this, but it was close call, yeah, too close for comfort. So the doctor, what he decided, he needed a law that explicitly gave him the authorization to conduct these non-consensual sterilization operations on those he deemed undesirable. So he had a friend at the Virginia legislature, a friend who was also really big into eugenics, and he had him draft and pass a law for this. And And his friend did that very quickly. But that was not enough. The law is only as strong as if it can withstand a challenge. So thankfully, the doctor, he had some connections at the Virginia Supreme Court. He hired a lawyer from the hospital, got the hospital's lawyer to represent one of his patients named Carrie Buck, whom he intended to sterilize. And together they went before the Virginia Supreme Court, where the doctor had friends that were really into eugenics too, so that the law that had recently passed could be challenged, right? So at the court, during the trial, if you will, the hospital defended, explained why it needed to perform these operations and why it had the right to do so. And Carrie Buck's lawyer, who was really the hospital's lawyer and acting on behalf of the hospital's interest, this lawyer, he called 0 witnesses and presented nothing into evidence. So unsurprisingly, the Virginia Supreme Court sided with the hospital. But that wasn't enough. The doctor, he also had, at the time, the U.S. Supreme Court had on the bench some judges that were staunch supporters of eugenics and the negative eugenics movement that was sweeping the U.S. The doctor worked his connections to get his sham case heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, which happened very quickly, actually, and it was essentially a repeat of what had happened in Virginia. So in 1927, the U.S. Supreme Court, in the case of Buck v. Bell, gave explicit permission to doctors to perform sterilization operations without the consent of the patient on men and women, overwhelmingly on women, in mental institutions, which at the time consisted also of epileptics and unwed mothers. So I thought that this would make a great story for an opera, right? The clash between classes, the over-the-top abuse of authority, the injustice, the judicial conspiracy, the personal trauma of these powerful men conspiring to deprive this young woman from the possibility of ever having a child. It's a true story, and sadly is incredibly relevant today, actually. So I thought it would make for a great opera, right? I got hold of court transcripts and documents from eugenics societies at the time and publications in defense of eugenics that were sweeping the nation at that time. And I took all this research and tried to condense it into a tight, accessible, and compelling narrative for the libretto. And I also had to compose the music. I'd play with some melodies, explore some harmonies, and the task of taking all these melodies and harmonies and orchestrating them in a compelling way that created a narrative arc. That task required me to empty my mind and dive deep into my imagination, listening to the sounds, listening to the melodies, how they would develop, mutate, and transform, and play off of each other, and listening to these harmonies, how they would carry and support and sometimes contrast with these melodies. And I had to hear all of this with such clarity that I could then transcribe it for an orchestra to replicate. This endeavor, it turns out, was beyond the reach of my talents at the time. Quite frustrating. And as my frustrations grew stronger, so did my hearing. Oh, I could hear all right. Not the intertwining melodies I was trying to develop, but I could hear when a breeze blew by and whistled through a blade of grass. I could hear when a neighbor turned on an electrical device. I could hear the current pass through the walls, and I could hear the electrical device start to hum several floors above me. I could hear everything. Every sound was amplified. So focused, so intent I was on hearing, oh, I got my wish. I got my wish, yeah. All these sounds, they came uninvited into my head and disrupted and disturbed me from exploring these melodies and harmonies I was trying to create. At the time, this was 2012, I was losing my mind. Yeah, losing my mind to the noise. And my fledgling career as a musician suffered in consequence. I was having a hard time paying rent. I was not living in a particularly nice place, but I had to move to a smaller, cheaper place. I simply wasn't making enough money to do otherwise. So I moved to the 18th district in northern Paris, to a neighborhood called Abbesse, into a small ground floor apartment with the most porous walls and the most pitifully thin ceiling you could possibly imagine. Now, I thought I was suffering from hypersensitivity to noise before, but that was nothing in comparison. I put Buck v. Bell to the side and I focused my creative energies on the situation at hand. I'll let younger Michael tell you about it. This is an extract from a one-man show in Warsaw, Poland back in 2019.
I want to take you back. This is 8 years ago, maybe more, maybe less. I'm living in a small studio apartment in Paris with thin walls and thin ceiling. I was spending so much time and so much energy fantasizing about killing my neighbors. I decided I should try to make a career out of it. So that's when I wrote my first manuscript. It was called Edifice Complex. And this is a guy who develops an erotic, obsessive relationship with the building he lives in. No, it's not. It's a serious work of literature. And together they kill all the neighbors. Now, I am still waiting for the publisher to put that out. I know I'm as shocked as you are.
I was quite happy with the result. It wasn't the greatest work of literature ever created, but it was pretty good, I thought. From there, my hypersensitivity to noise got worse. I had to quit music. I sold my piano, sold my guitars, and I moved to Lisbon, Portugal. Over the years that followed, I would write several other books, many short stories that would find their way into literary reviews and genre anthologies. And I'd occasionally go back to Edifice Complex, and tweak it, edit it, rewrite it. Got to the point I was so happy with it that I started sending it out to agents and small publishers. And the few agents that I eventually got to have a look at it, they all said the same thing to me. They said, it's good, which I know it's good. That's why I sent it to you. But okay. They would tell me, it's good, but I can't sell this. There's nothing like this out on the market. I don't even know what genre it is. Sorry, I can't help you. And I did get a few contract offers from some smaller, mid-sized publishing houses, but I ended up turning down those offers. I held on to the manuscript. I held out in hope that an agent would eventually find an agent that could get it into a large publishing house more in line with my ambitions. Over the years, the manuscripts keep piling up. The agents keep turning me down. I managed to eke out an existence, ghostwriting, and churning out tropey romance books and tropey mystery books and working for like book mills kind of thing. And I figured these clients, these book mills, they managed to sell these silly books that I churn out in a few weeks. Why can't I, with a book that I've taken more care in creating, why can't I have similar success in selling them? So I thought it's worth a try. I put out Edifice Complex myself. We'll see. It's a bit of an experiment. I know I can write books. I don't know if I can sell them. I think that involves a bit of marketing and social media. Two things I am not enthusiastic about or knowledgeable about. But who knows? Maybe I'll figure it out. Yeah. So if Edifice Complex sells, I have many other manuscripts I could put out. I figured I'd rather write for myself, put out the kinds of books I want to create rather than ghostwrite for other people and put out the kinds of books that the market is already flooded with, Well, we'll see, huh? Fingers crossed. I'd like to read for you a short excerpt. The excerpt I'm going to read for you is not actually from the book. It's from the notes about the book. Let's see. The first iteration of this book was penned back in 2012, and it has since gone through numerous rewrites, each being shaped and informed by new life experiences and changes to my state of mind. On a personal level, Edifice Complex does take me back to those difficult times in Paris in the early 2010s, but I also see how the story and the characters have evolved since then, how my attempt to live in Lisbon left its mark on the story, how years in Budapest and Poland smoothed out some of the rough edges, how recent trends in publishing and reader expectations have influenced the pacing as well as some of the characterization choices. Now that I am finally putting it out into the real world, I am freeing the story from the confines of my imagination, my experiences, and my sensibilities. Though ever-changing, they are not without limits. I do so, realizing that this story's emancipation does not mark the last of its frequent mutations. In all likelihood, in fact, its mutations will only increase now that the power to interpret the story, transform it, marry it with new experiences and mindsets is being transferred to the reader. As exciting as it was to witness the growth and evolution of this story, from its inception back in 2012 in a flat in Paris, through the numerous rewrites spanning over 10 years and nearly as many cities, I am excited now to see how this book, the story and the characters it contains, how it will continue to grow and evolve, this time not by the caprices of my mental composition, but by the interpretations, experiences, and discourse its readers, graciously or otherwise, bring to it. Thank you, thus, for contributing to the continued evolution of this work. Edifice Complex is a tough book to describe. It's not horror exactly, though it does live in the horror universe. There are supernatural or surreal elements, and many people get brutally killed. But it's not scary, so it's not horror in that respect. It's not autobiographical. It's not a true story, not by any stretch of the imagination. Though it is an investigation of some very real pain and very real frustrations I was going through. And it is an exploration or literary exploration of the housing crisis that large cities in Europe suffer from, notably Paris. Karim, the protagonist, he just wants to get away from the noise, He wants to be in a flat with thick walls and thick ceilings. He's a ticket vendor at the Montparnasse train station. It's a decent job. It's not a great job, though. His brother, Sammy, he works in finance. He's got his life together. lives in a really nice flat in a really nice part of Paris. And Kareem, he fantasizes about his brother's flat. He covets it. And when Sammy gets a promotion and gets sent off to the London office, Kareem takes over the lease, and finally, he and the flat can be together. And Kareem respects the building. He cares about it. He cares for it. Kareem is an attentive lover, as is the building. And finally, they can be together. And their relationship quickly blossoms. Unfortunately, the other tenants in the building, they are not as respectful. They are not as attentive. They take phone calls on the landings or in the stairwell. They play their music loud. It's horrible, horrible. So, Kareem, with the help of the voices in his head and with the help of the building itself, they all work together to kill off the other tenants so that Kareem and the building can be together. Problem is that the owner of the building has plans to sell the building to a developer so that it can be torn down and a more modern, higher capacity building can be erected in its place. Edifice Complex, it's a love story, not a healthy love story, a tragic love story with lots of blood and dismemberment and man on building sex. That kind of love story. So if you are at all intrigued by this, which I think you should be, it's a good book, really, I think. Unusual, yes, but interesting and entertaining as well, I think. I will leave links in the description box to where you can get it, or you can get it from whatever Amazon best serves the country you live in. I also have short story collections and novellas. I'll leave you to check those out on your own. Do follow me on Goodreads. I'll leave a link to that also in the description box. And then you can find out about my other books as well. If you do get yourself a copy of Edifice Complex, it's available in paperback and ebook formats. If you do get it and read it, please do leave a review on Amazon, on Goodreads. That is very helpful. It's through reviews that the book is going to get momentum and become a success. Become the success that we want it to become, right? So I thank you very much for your support and thank you very much for your reviews. I look forward to reading your reactions in the comment section and especially your reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next video.